What a week. Stranded foreigners.
I wake up in the morning.
Duty-free section is a ghost town.
Mikey, what's going on?
So when I left Australia, everything seemed okay in the world. And then I arrived in Manila on the 12th of March. And when I arrived in Manila, all of a sudden things had started to go a little bit crazy. The World Health Organization had declared this thing a pandemic, and Manila was shutting down. So Manila was going to be locked down, no travel in or out from the 15th, which meant there was a big scramble to get out or to get into Manila. Now I had flights that went from Manila to Panglao on the 13th, the next day. So I got on my flight and went to Panglao. The only issue is I accidentally left my passport on the plane, just in the little pocket in front of the seat. And so my passport went back to Manila. Now I was freaking out about this because I couldn't imagine getting stuck here with all of this going on without my passport. But a good friend of mine, Aldrich, had a flight from Manila to Cebu the following day. So he went to the airport, thank you Aldrich, picked up my passport and then flew to Cebu. Now Manila was going into lockdown for 30 days. This was on the 14th, this is what we knew. And then Panglao or Bohol, the province, and Cebu were going to go into lockdown for 5 days, and then we thought we were going to have freedom of travel after that. So Aldrich was going to stay in Cebu for 5 days, and then he was going to come over to Panglao after 5 days and bring my passport with him. But then by the 15th, it was looking like we were not going to have freedom of movement in between the islands for a month, and that's what's happened. The islands are locked down for 30 days, and this is hard because the Philippines is a nation of islands. And if you can't go back and forward between the islands, you can't get to the few international airports. So with a lot of headache, a lot of running around and asking questions and inquiring with different companies, we found out that we could put my passport on a cargo ship and send it over from Cebu to Panglao as cargo. And so that's what we did. And at 3 AM, I had to go to the port with some friends, Mikey and Wei. Thank you, Mikey and Wei. And we picked up my passport off the cargo ship. So now I had my passport and it was very much time to get home to the girls. On the 15th and the 16th, Clark Airport, just north of Manila, was still operational and still had outbound international flights. And so I booked a flight for the 21st, leaving from Clark, and then a domestic flight from Panglao to Clark. The next day, they shut Clark Airport down and they shut down all domestic flights, at least from my area. So I couldn't fly to Clark, and my flight from Clark was no longer leaving. So then on the 18th, I booked a flight from Cebu to Singapore and then from Singapore to Sydney. And it looked like flights were able to leave from Cebu, and I was just crossing my fingers that they were going to allow the ferries to start running after the 5-day quarantine period, which they originally said. But later on that day, my flight from Cebu got cancelled. And they were not going to be running the ferries, they told us. By this stage, I was going to the Department of Tourism every day to find out what was going on, what's the status, how are we leaving. So this is me in the Department of Tourism. We've just gone down and put our name down for an emergency evacuation. All right, so we're at the provincial capital building. This big white building here. Very nice, very nice. All right, so we're on our way to the provincial capital now. We're going to go and chat to the Department of Tourism. How's your consular experience, Dean? Good experience?
Yeah, pretty good.
Really good time.
Yeah.
They were trying to organize an emergency flight to get all the stranded foreigners, which is what we are called now, stranded foreigners, to get us all from Panglao to Manila, and then they started to allow outbound flights from Manila again, so we could then fly out from Manila. Now all the flights started to get just snapped up from Manila. Everyone was just buying flights. On the 18th, I went online and I looked at the flights, and there were lots of flights, and then I went back 1 hour to check it again, and almost everything was taken. So I just bought a flight from Manila to Sydney, hoping that the emergency flight would get us there in time. Turns out the emergency flight would never have got us there in time. But anyway, it didn't matter, because later that day, that flight that I booked from Manila to Sydney got cancelled. So the airline was like, no, we're not going to Australia anymore. And so then I was just hanging out, waiting for the Department of Tourism to just send us this emergency flight so they could take us from Panglao back to Manila. And while we were hanging out, we did a little bit of fun diving because otherwise we were just going to go crazy. And so here is a little snippet from that fun dive. Good morning, freediving family. I am here with Mikey and Wei from M Ocean Freediving and Amber Burke, who is an Australian freediver who gets very shy when the camera's pointed at her. And we are going to go for a fun dive down where the sardines are here in Panglao. So actually, I wanted to go...
Ah, Mikey, what's going on?
Scared the shit out of me. Okay, so I'm leaving you. So I wanted to go for a road trip around Bohol today. We were going to go for this big, amazing road trip and check out some of the dive sites in the area. But obviously with the virus sort of escalating, that's probably not a great idea. And then we found out from the government that we weren't allowed to do that anyway. So we weren't allowed to leave our immediate vicinity. So today we're going to cruise around Panglao and show you some of the cool things that are in our immediate vicinity. So let's go do that.
Sitting on my backpacking.
Alright, so we're gonna just swim off over there, like, and just go along the cliffs, and we'll go through the sardines and just follow the sort of the coral drop off around and just see what we kind of come to. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm really impressed with the health of the reef in this part of the Philippines. They've been trying different types of coral restoration in this area, and they found that building these type of structures is the best way to grow coral here.
Away, my only destination is hope, and I'm missing home.
Wow, this is so amazing right now.
I love the adventures that I have. I just like to have a place to come back, a warm house of friends to tell them.
There's a lot of sardines now. Corona is good for the environment. Look at this.
Yes, I really like someone to call me back next time I pack my bags. Do you know how it feels to travel non-stop, to live in a train with nowhere to go, and everybody knows me around the globe, but when I'm down I've got nowhere to go.
If you're asking yourself, is floating up through tens of thousands of sardines like this an incredible experience? The answer is yes. It was absolutely amazing. Being inside a vortex of fish like this is just overwhelming.
I'll leave you this short letter just to let you know that I would like you to be my home and take you everywhere I go. So if you come with me, I'll never leave you alone. And if we find a place to build our home and tell our friends the stories of our journey, please come with me. And I love the adventures that I have. Love the adventures that I have. Like to have a place to. I just like to have a place to come back, a warm house of friends to tell.
So yeah, I caught one. I just put it there, and that's how you catch sardines.
Around the sardines were heaps of jacks that were feeding off the school of sardines. So Dean didn't actually bite that little fish.
Hi, Mikey. Man, these sardines are nuts. I've never seen so many sardines around. It's sick. We're just kind of playing around with the camera, getting some like incredible shots. I'll show you what I mean.
Further along there was a really cool crack in the reef. In Filipino, cracks like this are called bangang. So here is Wei swimming through the bangang.
Wow, absolutely amazing conditions. And this is right in front of the Emotion Freediving Dive Center. So this is what you swim through every day on your way to your training session. So it's a pretty magical spot. So good work, team. Nice job. Lots of sardines and a little cheeky bungang, you know, little crack. And we were swimming along the Kuntil, which is an underwater cliff. Now I know that. Swimming along the Kuntil, swimming through the bungang, playing with the sardines. Good times all round. Wow, that was a pretty incredible, what I hope is my final dive here. So now we're going to go to the Department of Tourism and see about how we get onto these emergency flights that they're sending from Panglao to Manila. So it's evacuation time. See you on the other side. And if you are coming to Panglao and you are keen to learn how to freedive, I'll put a link to their school, Emotion Freediving, in the description down below. Then on the 20th of March, I found out two things. They were opening up Clark Airport, Manila Airport and Cebu Airport for outbound flights, so foreigners could leave the country. And they were organising an emergency boat to go from Panglao to Cebu so that anyone in Panglao could fly out from Cebu. So I immediately just booked a flight from Cebu because I knew that if I waited like another hour, they would all just be gone. So this is my fourth flight that I've booked. The other three had just been cancelled. I have some serious refunds coming from airlines. Now, in order to get on the emergency boat, the emergency ferry from Panglao over to Cebu, we needed to go to the tourism office and register as a stranded tourist. So we went and registered as a stranded foreigner. Then we needed to go and get medical clearance. So we went to the local healthcare center or the little hospital here, and we got checked to make sure we don't have coronavirus. And then we went and got permission from the mayor, or signed off by the mayor, giving us permission to leave the province. And so I did all three of those things, running around manic, and then here we are now. So now it is the 21st. I fly out from Cebu on the 22nd. In about 1 hour, I'll be traveling up north to the port to hopefully get on my, I say hopefully because anything can always change now, to get on my ferry to get to Cebu, to then get on my flight, and then get out of here. So it's quite a shame to leave the Philippines because I've been having such a good time here, but I've got to get home because I have a little baby and a beautiful wife, and now is not the time to be away from them. Alright, so I'm on my way to the ferry. My friend Chepe is driving me there. I can't drive myself because there are checkpoints along the way and I don't have a Filipino driving license. So there's checkpoints along the way where they, you know, measure your temperature and all that kind of jazz and ask you, why are you traveling? What are you doing moving around when you're meant to be in quarantine? So this is the first leg of the journey, trying to get to the boat. Something is going on and I am not certain what it is. This procession was preceded by like 20 or 30 buses, just empty buses, all with their blinkers on, all with drivers wearing personal protection equipment. So we're getting our medical clearance before we can get on the boat. So this is the ferry that we're getting onto. The nighttime ferry. So I made it. I'm in a little airport hotel in Cebu, and so we got on the ferry. The ferry was a cargo ferry with some passengers, obviously, and then we got to Cebu. They were just like put us on this bus, and they drove the bus onto the ferry, so we wouldn't even set foot at the port. Put us on the bus, had a police escort to the airport, and then we're like at the airport. So we're like, okay, well, my flight's not till tomorrow, so I've come down to the airport hotel, and here I am in this little tiny box until tomorrow.
Woo! Hang on, at least I'm getting close to getting home, so this is getting fun. The airport's empty. The duty-free section is a ghost town. No products, no people, no nothing. Wow. So just before I got on my flight from Cebu, some friends of mine sent me something from the Singaporean government which said that on the 23rd of March, just before midnight, Singapore would be totally closing its borders, not allowing any passengers in or not even allowing passengers in transit. And so I basically, like, I just made it in. If I had booked like the flight for, you know, like later that afternoon or the next day or I don't know, whenever, I would have gotten stranded in Singapore and then I would have had to quarantine here for 2 weeks, and then if I could have got back to Australia on a plane, then I would have had to quarantine myself again in Australia for 2 weeks. So I'm going to be one of the last people leaving Singapore. Yeah, amazing, amazing luck. Oh wow, I have arrived. I'm in a hotel room in Sydney where I'll be quarantining now for 14 days. And man, that was really stressful and exhausting. So yeah, I am so lucky that I got out of Singapore. I am so lucky that I was on one of the last flights out of that country and one of the last flights allowed into the country for transit, because there's no transit anymore, nothing. So yeah, now I'm gonna just sit around and do not much. I am actually going to start doing some live streams on this channel. So I'll post a story or a post on the YouTube feed here, letting you know when the next live stream is going to be. You know, you can ask me whatever you want, tips, questions, things, bits, bobs, whatever you want to know about freediving. We'll do some live streams. I hope you are safe wherever you are, and let's enjoy this 2 weeks of quarantine. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe by pressing this little circular thing down here.
Also, check out this video.
Or you might want to check out this video because you might like it too.